All right, we are on page 61, starting with number 16, round 17 and 641 thousandths to the nearest whole number. So I'm looking at 17,641. I need to be looking at the tenths place. The reason I'm looking at the tenths place is because it is the one right behind the whole one. So I'm thinking of the 6, and I'm thinking, is this more than halfway or less than halfway? So if I'm going to round this to either down to 17 or up to 18, what I'm thinking of is what is halfway. So if I'm looking at 17 down here and 18 up here, halfway is 17 and 5/10. Well, this is 6. I have a 6 in the tenths place, which would mean that this number would be up here somewhere, above 17 and a half. So that is closer to 18. So this would round to 18, the nearest whole number. This problem is asking us to choose the digits that show 3 and 96 thousandths rounded to the nearest hundredth. So I'm going to write this as 3.096. Here is the hundredths place. This is what I need to round to, but I am going to look at the place right behind it. I'm going to look at the 6, and that's going to tell me if I'm either going to round up or I'm going to round down to the next hundredth. Well, the 3 is not going to change. The 3 is going to stay the same. I'm not rounding to the nearest tenth. Or I'm sorry, I'm not rounding to the nearest 1. So I'm not going to go up to 4. I'm rounding to the nearest hundredth. So I'm looking more back here at the decimal part. So if I think about this on a scale or a number line, at the top, I would have 3 and 9 hundredths, because we're rounding to the nearest hundredth. And the next hundredth, if I'm counting 9, the next one would be 10. So this would be 3 and 10 hundredths. 9 hundredths, 10 hundredths. And I know the 1 is in the tenths place, but I've added 1 to this. And as we know, when we get 10 of something, we have to kind of go to the next place. So if I have 10 hundredths, I have a tenth. If I have 10 tenths, I would increase the ones. If I have $10 bills, I would have one $10 bill. If I have 10 tens, I have 100. So that's why this becomes a 1 here. The halfway point, 3.095. I can think about these, if that's kind of confusing to you, as this is 90, and this is 100, and this is 95. So it's just kind of helping me put into perspective what's in the middle. And I see here that I have 96. So I have 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, halfway. 96 is up here. So this is closer because it is past halfway. So my 3 stayed the same, like we said. My tenths actually changed to a 1. And my hundredths actually became a 0 because this was closest to 3 and 10 hundredths. So that was my answer. 3 and 96 thousandths rounded to 3 and 10 hundredths. My next one, I'm looking at this number right here, 143 and 649 thousandths, and I need to figure out what place value each of these have been rounded to. So there's a couple of them that are, I think, pretty easy or easier than others. We see this says 100. So this, to me, is pretty obvious that it should be the hundredths place. So it's rounding to the nearest 100. So 143 is less than 150, which is why it rounded down to 100. I can see that this one right here is 140. This would lead me to believe that we're looking at rounding to the nearest 10. So that would have been 140, or the next 10 would have been 150. In the middle would be 145, and I only had 143, so it would round down, right? Because it's somewhere down here. It didn't even make it to halfway. So I'm going to say 140 is definitely the tens. So those two are probably the most easiest because I have rounding to the tens place, rounding to the hundreds. Then I'm going to look at the decimals because there's two that I have to think about. So this has a 6 in the tenths place. This has a digit in the hundredth place, which kind of lead me to believe this is rounded to the nearest tenth. And this is rounded to the nearest hundredth because it has a digit in the hundredths. This has a digit in the tenths. This one is rounded then to the nearest ones. So if I'm writing those letters, this is to the nearest hundredth. This is to the nearest hundred. 144 is the nearest one. Tenths place is A, and tens is D. I want to show you the ones place real quick. So I have 143. So that means it's either going to round down to 143 or up to 144. Our halfway point is 143 and 1/2, right? 5/10 is 1/2. Our number is 143.6. So that decimal 6 is more than 5. So it's up here, which is why we rounded up to 144. Okay? Adding and subtracting, the nice part is when you do this in the book, these are already lined up for you. When you do these on the computer for the actual test, you're going to have to line them up yourself when you do it on the whiteboard. So please make sure that when you do the work separately, you make sure that you are lining up the decimal points, right? Line them up, up, up. So this is just simple addition, adding the hundredths, then adding the tenths, adding the ones, adding the hundreds, and then the tens, and then the hundreds, making sure as always that we put our decimal point in the right place. Same thing with the subtraction. Everything should be lined up with the decimal point in the right place, and then we just add or subtract like normal. 7 plus 5 is 12, so I put down the 2, carry the 1. 8 plus 2 is 12, plus 1 is 13. Put down the 3, carry the 1. 6 plus 3 is 9, plus 1 is 10. I put down the 0 and carry the 1. 7 plus 1 is 8. 8 plus 1 is 9. Put down the 9. And 2 plus 0 is 2. So working from right to left, adding each place separately. The subtraction can get a little trickier because we may have to borrow or ungroup. So I have 2 and I'm taking away 3, which means that is impossible because I don't have enough to give. So I'm going to change, a different color pen. I'm going to change the 7 to a 6, and this 2 is now a 12. I took those 10 tenths and added them to my hundredths, which gave me 12. 12 minus 3 is 9. And now I have 6 minus 9, which I can't do. I know this is a little blurry. I'm sorry. I was trying to get it a little closer. 4 becomes a 3, and the 6 becomes a 16. 16 minus 9 is 7. 3 minus 3 is 0. So again, just making sure that we're ungrouping or borrowing correctly as we go through. The last one is estimating the sum or difference, which means we need to round. I'm going to do this one first because I have extra room over here. 21 and 95 hundredths is almost 22, right? I'm only missing 5 hundredths, so I'm going to round that to 22. I only have 4 hundredths here, which means this should be closer to 3. If I add those together, I get 22 plus 3, which equals 25. So that one rounded, I would say, is about 25. I don't have to find the exact answer, So that one is going to be 25. Estimate the sum or difference. For these, I'm looking at what's pretty close. So I see that I've got like 31 and 35. This one might be one that I want to keep the cents, and maybe I want to do this as 44 and 30 cents minus 12 and 40 cents. I could even round this to the nearest dollar, so 44 minus 12. So as long as we're estimating the sum or difference and rounding these to something that makes sense, and estimating, we should be getting something pretty close to the actual answer. So 44 minus 12, this is to me the easiest way to estimate it by the ones. 4 minus 2 is 2, 4 minus 1 is 3. So this answer would be about 32.